Many parents find it very difficult to cope when they have a baby, and why or how a parent breaks down is always complex. To really help people work through a breakdown and form a strong bond with their new baby, it's crucial to explore these complexities. This film is about a perinatal breakdown triggered by domestic abuse. Humans can be incredibly violent, both physically and verbally, and violent actions are often driven by rage that can erupt when somebody feels threatened. Control issues are often a key factor in violent relationships, and babies are at grave risk if they are caught in the middle. This film tells the story of Jadine and her baby boy, Jaden, now aged 8.
And that's your foot, there's your belly, and there's your forehead. Look, there's your nose.
It explores how violence blocked them from bonding, but it shows that with the right kind of intervention, change is possible.
I just remember just wanting to be the best mum anyone could, not even just that I could be, that anyone could possibly be. I just wanted to be the best mum in the world. I wanted someone to look up to me, and part of it was that I saw so many bad things that I thought, I'll show you lot, I'll do it differently. This is the way to do it.
I bet you don't remember that picture being taken.
No, it looks like.
Look, and you got your dummy on a gold chain. That's how ghetto you was when you was a baby.
But that's
Look.
When I was pregnant, loads of people just doubted that I'd be able to cope. So I literally made it my life's mission to read every book going on how to look after a baby. Even Jaden's dad doubted. I remember him saying to me, "What you think reading books is gonna help you do you?" And I thought that was a really odd thing to say at the time, but I kind of brushed it off. And so when Jaden was born, I remember just being really, really happy until about 3 days after he was born. And then everything literally just turned grey. In my life, everything just started feeling like it was falling apart. We stayed at my mum's house for the first 9 days after Jaden was born. And then I said, let's go out to the shop. And I got dressed as normal and we walked out of my mum's house. And as soon as we got round the corner, he said, "You look like a hooker today. There's something wrong with you for you to go out dressed like that." And I just thought, when you met me, I was wearing similar clothes. He just turned so nasty. Literally, it was a person I didn't even know, really. I don't think I've ever known someone to be that angry for no reason.
It's worth thinking about why that is for a man. What gets stirred up for him when suddenly his sexual partner becomes a potential mother figure. And just like a mother's relationship with her own mother gets stirred to life during pregnancy and the postnatal period, just the same for the father. His relationship with his own mother gets stirred to life again, and especially feelings around possessiveness, control, jealousy. And so I think for Jadine's partner, without knowing why, he would suddenly, I think, find himself overpowered with violent and aggressive feelings toward her body and toward her. When he perceived this pregnancy, he could visually see it, and when he felt a bit out of control of what was going on, was he losing her?
A couple of days later, I'd been up for how many days in a row. I was so excited about having Jaden. I was really, really tired, but I went downstairs to the woman's room and we were just sitting there watching TV, and God knows when, but I fell asleep. Next minute I know, I felt something on my face, and I just woke up and I just thought, what was that? And I just said, did he just hit me? And no one answered. And so I thought, oh my God, where's Jaden? And they said, his dad's taking him upstairs. So I went upstairs and he was like, oh, you're disgusting. How dare you let my baby fall asleep on somebody else's bed? You fell asleep on their bed as well. You've embarrassed me. And he was like, right, that's it. I want you out of my house. Get out of my house now. Even though I knew we didn't really have anywhere to go, I was like, fine, that's fine. I didn't have any feeling at this point. I picked up the phone and I rang my mum and I said, look, Mum, can you come and get me? Jaden's dad said he doesn't want us in the house anymore. I haven't got a problem with it. I'm going to pack up Jaden's stuff. Please, can you come and get me? And as soon as I put the phone down, he hit me in my face, punched me fully in this side of my face. And I remember just thinking, what? I just couldn't get my head around what was even going on. Because he literally, from that first punch, it was like a full-blown fight, but it was like I had my hands tied behind my back. He was just punching me over and over again. I just remember being on the floor at some point, and Jaden was on the bed. Jaden started screaming. And I was thinking, oh my God, what if the baby rolls off? What if the baby falls on the floor? I just remember screaming, someone help me. He's hurting me. And he said, shut up. And then I just remember gagging. I opened my eyes and I could just see green in front of me. I saw a silver button. And then I realised what was going on. He'd actually stuffed Jaden's baby grow down my throat. He dragged me into the bathroom. And I thought he was going to drown me. That's what I thought he was going to do. But he didn't. He put the toilet seat down. He said, right, now, you calm down. I was thinking, me calm down. But I sat on the toilet and he said, stay there. If you go anywhere, then I'm gonna kill you. So I just sat there and I thought, oh my God, what about Jaden?
When we think about the very kind of stark term domestic violence, we're actually talking about often intimate couple violence, where there are very powerful feelings between two people linked inextricably to the relationships they've had in their childhoods, relationships which they carry around like an internal cast of characters in their heads to the present situation. He's not sitting there looking at her thinking, I'm feeling jealous of you because perhaps I've had issues with my mother when perhaps she gave birth to a younger sibling. Instead, he's just feeling it. Angry, preoccupied, explosive, and then often quite sorry afterwards.
He came back with the house phone and he said, ring your mum and tell her you've made a mistake. Tell her it was a misunderstanding. The only thing I could think of was to hint to her that it wasn't okay, but say that it was. So I said to her, do you remember that ex-boyfriend that you had? It's a bit like that. It's a misunderstanding like that. And then I just remember going back into the room and he's like, right, you've got to sleep with me now. I can't even tell you how I felt. I can't even remember how I felt at that time. I was just like numb, probably. I just thought, how dare you? That's all I could think in my head was, how dare you? I remember just being really relieved once I'd got there. Really, really relieved. But I still did feel like I had some sort of loyalty to him. Like I had to go back, or I had to at least speak to him. It's not fair. I'll be the mum that everyone talks about that doesn't let their child see their dad. And then I think it was about 2 days later, I just ended up going back because me and my mum started rowing so much. I just ended up going back. And I have no idea why. I just felt like that was the only place I had to go. That house was my all, like that was just it. I don't know why the police didn't enter into my thoughts. I just felt like I had to just not say anything. I would never have thought of social services. The only time I thought they could help is if they needed to take a child away. I just thought, oh, well, I don't need them to take Jaden away. So I avoided them for a few weeks. And there was an instance where there was a message put through the door. And Jaden's dad can't read, so he didn't know what that message was saying or whatever. It turned out that it was actually like a letter to say they were going to be round on such and such a day. And when she came, she had like a questionnaire that you fill out. And I knew that if I ticked certain questions to say that I felt depressed, I was crying all the time, I knew someone would pick up on it. The next time she was due to come round, she didn't come round by herself. She came with a social worker, and to be honest, I can't remember a lot of what they said because I was too busy concentrating on the fact that Jaden's dad was looking at me through the crack of the door. And they did mention domestic violence, but literally he was just staring at me. And they did say to me, look, you've got 3 different options here. If you're going through domestic violence, if you're scared, you can go and speak to a psychologist. You can leave where you're living now, which I told them I didn't have anywhere to go. Or eventually, if it gets to a situation where you're not taking up your options, we might have to remove Jaden from you. And that's literally what made me just think, no way.
In terms of mental health services, there are 3 tiers. Tier 1, Tier 2 could be GP counselling. It's not too serious a problem. Referral to a Tier 3 service, which is the service that Jadine was referred to, indicates that there are quite serious problems that have been identified. When I asked her how she was feeling, she said, well, my feelings live in another room. You know, I don't feel things. Now, from Jadine's point of view, of course, that's her telling me about her way of coping with emotional distress. She's not naming that as a problem, but I would see that that self-preservative coping mechanism was possibly problematic. This video is taken in the first session where I met Jadine and Jaden. What was so striking to me was just that he felt as if he was quite a stiff little baby, quite unrelaxed. And I didn't know at this point of time that Jaden had actually been exposed to witnessing quite a lot of violence between his parents. The whites of his eyes show quite markedly as well, and you can see here that he has a slightly frightened response. He pulls away from his mum's hand, and at that point you can see Jaden sort of like arching his back, which is a signal of kind of I want to get away from the situation. And Jadine had said to me, look, it's all mechanical, it's like he's an object. So you can sort of see with the way she moves his feet. I came to understand how actually when she was holding Jaden, she got him terribly confused with his father. So Jaden in a way was suffused with projections, so to speak, of his father's presence, getting in the way of their forming bond.
One way of controlling people that Jaden's dad used was to embarrass me all the time. He embarrassed me in front of everybody that lived in that house, not only by beating me up, that I could have probably dealt with, but the fact he used to call people up into the room to stand as like judge and jury. I remember being beaten up in front of one of his friends because I left a piece of tissue on the floor. I felt like I was like the lowest form of human being. I knew I shouldn't be treated like it, but to be honest, because my mum had already gone through it, it seemed like it's like, oh, that's just what happens, isn't it? And maybe I just have to put up with it. I remember one of my mum's ex-boyfriends, I remember him just literally, she was just being dragged by her hair, the back of her head, and just being ragged. All I can remember is just she looked like a rag doll, just doing this in front of me, and out of nowhere I just remember being picked up, and I think what happened at the time was that I was picked up by my clothes at the back and held up and just thrown down the stairs.
Jadine was the eldest of 6 children by 5 different fathers, and most of those relationships had involved domestic violence, and Jadine had feared for her mother's safety chronically throughout her childhood.
At first, we didn't know what was going on because she wasn't diagnosed for quite some time. Afterwards, we just thought it was really weird how she was behaving, like hallucinating, telling us that we were people that we weren't. And a lot of the time, my mum was just literally in a state of depression. Like, the whole house just felt like black. It was just dark completely. And it can be scary when she's going through a really bad stage. But then usually what tends to happen is my siblings get really scared. And so I just take charge straight away. And I don't feel anything at all. I go through the whole experience just being completely numb and just sorting things the best way I know how. Usually when I'm concentrating, everyone will say, just leave her alone. Just let her do it.
If you're numb most of the time, you don't feel pain. If the ice is going to have to thaw and the feelings underneath are painful and raw, it actually means people can sometimes feel quite a bit worse before they feel better. As she began to think, maybe I want better for myself and maybe I don't want Jadine exposed to that, she was confronted with, well, what are you going to do? And it's well known in the literature on domestic violence that at the point where someone might make a change and leave, that the danger escalates because the partner starts to pick up subtle, perhaps non-verbal signs that their partner is perhaps becoming a bit more assertive and so forth.
I said to him, my psychologist said that if ever there's a day I don't turn up, she's going to ring the police. And I remember being like really proud of myself for being able to even say that to him. It turned out that that was the thing that saved my life, because one day I didn't want to sleep with him because I found out that I'd got STD from, it must have been from him because I didn't sleep with anybody else. And I said, no, how dare you? You must have been sleeping around for me to get this when I know I ain't slept with anybody else. And he just started punching me, and it was literally almost like the same situation the first time all over again. He just literally just beat me to within like an inch of my life, and I ran to the front door, and he just like pulling my hair, and I opened the front door and I could hear my hair ripping, and I ran like right into the corner of that low gate and just crouched down, and he had a knife over me and he was trying to jab at me with the knife. And I said to him, you can't hurt me because I'm going to go and see my psychologist today. And if I don't turn up, you know what's going to happen. And that is literally the only reason why he probably didn't stab me on that day. Because he knew if he stabbed me, I wouldn't go to the police. And I just remember getting myself dressed, getting the baby ready, and just and then just going. I don't know how I made it through the train journey. All I remember is just being in this room and just shaking. That's all I remember. I just remember just shaking and just thinking, oh my God.
She arrived at her session one week in a state I'd never seen her in before. She was almost mute and shaking and found it very hard to articulate what had happened. It was an immense coming together, because what Jadine actually did was she brought her feelings into my room. And I was there a bit like a parent figure with a frightened child to try and help her sort out these feelings. With the help of a colleague, we made a plan for her that weekend to go into a refuge, and then from there, greater steps could be taken about changing her living circumstance.
Where are you going? Where are you going? What are you doing? Yeah, what are you doing? Oh my. Oh no, why didn't you say so? Why you never said? Yeah, you're dancing. Yeah, you're dancing. You can dance, go on. Yeah, you're dancing.
The transference dynamic that was going on between Jadine and Jayden, that she really didn't know whether she was holding Jayden or his father, and that meant it was very difficult to know how to get close to Jayden, and that's why it felt so mechanical between them. She actually did an awful lot of work on that. as she sort of sorted out that dynamic so that Jayden became more just a little baby in his own right and actually the baby she'd originally wanted, the change in the interactions between them was very powerful and striking.
Where's that sound coming from, Jayden?
I had to literally drill it into my head every day. It's his dad, it's not him. And at that time, I just remember just thinking, oh God, I've got a son and now he's going to turn out like his dad. And it's really hard to connect to the baby. It's not until I realised I could change what path Jayden goes down. I didn't realise that I had so much power in being his mum and being able to leave his dad. What that would give me. I was able to separate my feelings for him from my feelings for his dad. Once I realised that, I was completely happy, completely in love with Jayden.
It can be like almost an unconscious glue that sticks these difficult couple relationships together. And I'd say it took us time to unstick Jayden's relationship, but then she wasn't in a situation where she kept going back, as can happen sometimes. And I would suggest that's because she had ongoing therapeutic support quite intensively, and also she had her baby.
You like to hear your mommy laughing. Yeah, when she's laughing. Jayden. What's that? What's that? Yeah, it's a plug.
I tend to have like loads of pictures of Jade around, just hanging around. It reminds me of different parts of our lives. This one, I don't know if this one will stay. This is when we went on a beach trip to with the refuge. There's probably only about 4 months there. I just tell him generally what it was like when he was younger, but I don't really say anything to him about like what his dad's done. I just can't think of what to say, to be honest. Don't want him to end up hating his dad, but at the same time, he done me wrong, so I have to tell him the truth. Realistically, from the time you say, oh, your dad beat me up, then it's like kind of a downhill conversation from there. So I don't know how I'm gonna put it across. I think I'm probably gonna say something like, your dad was a really good dad to you, but he wasn't very nice to me. I'll let Jayden determine when we have that conversation, I think.
The choice of Jayden's next partner was interesting because it showed me that deep down her belief that should she be with someone who could make her feel punished or bad had gone.
Slap me when that
Nothing to do with nails, Jayden, it's a skill.
Given what I see of Jayden and his relationship with his mum, I do find it almost impossible to imagine he'd ever become a young man who wanted to hurt a partner deliberately.
If you say you love someone, yeah, it means that you just love them because you really just like them or you really love them. You won't say it because you want something. Like, yeah, I love you. Can I have a new car? Yeah, I love you. Can I have a cat?
Can I have a dog?
I love you. Can we go to a restaurant?
I love you. Can I go to can I have a PlayStation 3?
Shut up. PlayStation 3. You're a joker.
It is often hard for mothers to open up and be honest about their feelings. Someone like Jayden understandably found it very difficult to trust professionals. She even found it hard to admit to herself that she needed help. Jadine's story shows that with access to the right services, lives can be transformed. Without help, Jadine and Jaden would be living a completely different life.